Sometimes hunger isn't just about food. It's about hope, about someone looking at you, even for a second, and deciding you matter. For most of us, a meal is nothing more than a pause in our day. We sit, eat, and move on. But for one little girl standing in the corner of a fancy restaurant that night, that single piece of bread meant everything. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Her clothes were torn, her cheeks pale, and her eyes dimmed by exhaustion. She wasn't begging for money or pity. All she wanted was the leftover bread someone might leave behind. When she finally gathered enough courage to approach a man sitting alone by the window, she whispered softly, "Sir, may I have your leftover bread?" The entire restaurant fell silent. Forks stopped midair. Some guests frowned. Others turned away in disgust. But the man she spoke to, Jason Statham, didn't move. He just looked at her, his jaw tightening as he saw something no one else cared to see. And what he did next would be remembered by everyone in that restaurant, and by that little girl for the rest of their lives. It was one of those cold, gray evenings when the city lights looked blurred through mist. People rushed down sidewalks, umbrellas up, laughter echoing from open doors. Inside the restaurant, warmth glowed through tall glass windows, golden and perfect. But outside, on the other side of that glass, Leela, 8 years old, watched in silence. Her shoes were torn, her jacket thin. The scarf around her neck, frayed and faded, had once belonged to her mother. It was all she had left. For 3 nights, she had slept behind a bakery, curled beside a vent where warm air leaked out. The smell of bread tortured her, comfort and cruelty at once. That night, she stared through the restaurant window as waiters glided between tables, carrying steaming plates and baskets of fresh rolls. Her stomach growled painfully. "1 bite," she whispered to herself. Just 1 bite. She didn't like begging. Her mother had always said, "Hold your head high, no matter what." But hunger humbles even the proudest hearts. Inside, the restaurant buzzed with the quiet elegance of money, polished floors, silver cutlery, soft jazz. It was the kind of place where people wore their success like armor. At a table near the center sat Jason Statham, not as the action star the world knew, but simply a man looking for peace. Weeks of filming and travel had drained him. Tonight was supposed to be quiet. No cameras, no fans, just a meal. But as he lifted his glass, something outside the window caught his eye. A small figure pressed against the glass. A child, dirty, trembling, her wide eyes fixed not on him, but on the untouched bread basket beside his plate. Jason froze. Her breath fogged the glass. She didn't flinch or look away. She just stood there, clutching her hands together, the image of silent desperation. There was no greed in her gaze, only hunger. He set his knife down. The waiter noticed immediately. "Everything all right, sir?" Jason's voice was quiet, but sharp. "That girl outside, how long has she been standing there?" The waiter turned, frowned slightly. "Oh, her? She's been hanging around for a few days." Security's told her to move along. Jason's brow furrowed. "Move along?" The waiter shrugged. "This is a fine establishment, sir. We can't have beggars hanging near the guests." Jason's tone hardened. "She's not a beggar. She's a child." The waiter hesitated. "Still, sir, it doesn't look good." Jason's voice cut through the noise. "Bring her in." "Sir, you heard me. Bring her in. And make sure she gets something warm to eat." The waiter blinked, uncertain if he'd heard right. But Jason's expression left no room for doubt. Outside, Leela had already turned to leave, head lowered, steps heavy. She'd expected nothing. Kindness was a luxury the world no longer gave freely. Then, suddenly, the restaurant door opened. The same waiter she'd seen sneering earlier now called out, awkward but gentle, "Hey, you, come inside." Leela froze mid-step. "Me?" "Yes, come on. Someone wants to see you." Confused and afraid, she stepped through the doorway. The warmth hit her instantly. The smell of roasted food and buttered rolls wrapped around her like a dream. Her hands trembled. Conversations dimmed as all eyes turned toward her. Jason gestured to the empty chair across from him. "Sit." She shook her head quickly. "I can't, sir. I'm dirty." He smiled faintly. So's the world. Sit. Cautiously, she climbed into the chair. Her legs dangled off the seat, her fingers fidgeting nervously. Jason pushed the breadbasket toward her. You wanted this. She hesitated. Just one bite, sir. Eat it all, he said gently. And then we'll get you something warm. Her eyes filled as she took the smallest piece, tasting it like it was gold. The moment bread touched her tongue, tears slid down her cheeks. It wasn't just food, it was dignity, warmth, and a reminder that kindness still existed. Jason watched quietly, no pity in his eyes, only recognition. He'd been hungry once too. When she finished, he waved the waiter over. Bring her a meal. Soup, chicken, whatever's hot, and make it generous. The waiter nodded quickly, hurrying to the kitchen. Leela looked up, wiping her tears. Why are you being nice to me? Jason shrugged. You were hungry. That's all the reason I need. She smiled weakly. Most people don't see it that way. Most people see with their eyes, he said softly. You have to see with your heart. Leela's lips trembled. That's what my mom used to say. Jason leaned in slightly. Where's your mom now? Her voice dropped. She got sick months ago. The hospital took her, but they said I couldn't stay. I tried to go back, but... Her words broke off. Jason's jaw tightened. You been on your own since then? She nodded slowly. I sell flowers sometimes, but it's cold now. No one buys flowers in the cold. When the waiter returned with steaming soup and roasted chicken, the entire restaurant fell silent again as Leela devoured the first warm meal she'd had in weeks. Jason waited until she slowed down, then asked quietly, You got anywhere to sleep tonight? Leela looked down. No, I used to sleep behind a bakery, but they closed the gate. Jason reached into his coat and placed several folded bills on the table. Finish your meal, then I'll take you somewhere safe. Her spoon paused midair. You mean home? He smiled softly. Something like that. Why would you help me? She whispered. Jason stared at her for a moment, voice rough. Because when I was your age, someone helped me. The chatter in the restaurant had stopped entirely. Wealthy guests who had turned away before now sat in silence, watching a Hollywood star share his dinner and his compassion with a forgotten child. But Jason didn't notice them. He only noticed her. When the meal ended, he stood and helped her down gently. Come on, kid. Let's get you warm. Outside, rain had started to fall again. He draped his jacket around her small shoulders. It hung nearly to her knees. She smiled shyly. It smells nice. He chuckled. That's aftershave. She giggled. A sound so pure it pierced through the rain. He led her to his car, a plain black SUV, unremarkable but steady. As they drove off, she whispered, Do you think my mom's okay? Jason looked at her through the mirror. I think she'd be proud you're still fighting. The drive was quiet except for the hum of the heater and the rain drumming on the roof. Leela sat curled in the passenger seat, clutching Jason's jacket close to her chest. Every few seconds, she glanced at him as though afraid he might disappear like every other promise in her life. Jason stole a glance at her. You cold? She shook her head quickly, though her lips were trembling. No, sir. Just not used to warm cars. He gave a small, sad smile. Well, you'll get used to it. They stopped at a 24-hour store. Jason came back with a bundle of clothes, a backpack, and a steaming cup of hot chocolate. When he handed it to her, she looked at it as if it were treasure. For me? For you? He said, starting the engine again. Drink before it gets cold. She sipped slowly, wincing at first. Then her eyes closed in bliss. It's so good. Jason smiled faintly, but his chest ached. She reminded him too much of himself at that age. Abandoned, hungry, invisible. Only difference was someone had helped him once. A man who gave him food, shelter, and a reason to believe he could be more. And now, he had a chance to do the same. The car finally stopped in front of St. Mary's Shelter, a small, clean facility run by kind-hearted volunteers. The matron recognized Jason immediately. Mr. Statham. He shook her hand firmly. This little one needs a place for a few nights. I'll cover her stay and anything else she needs. The matron nodded warmly. Of course. We'll take good care of her. Leela clutched Jason's sleeve, suddenly afraid. You're not leaving, are you? He knelt to her height. I have to, for now, but I'll come back tomorrow. Promise. She looked at him uncertainly. People say that a lot. He took off his leather bracelet, the one he always wore, and wrapped it around her tiny wrist. Then keep this. If I don't come back, you can throw it away. Her eyes filled with tears. Okay. He smiled gently. Now go get warm. As she followed the matron inside, she turned back and waved. Thank you for bread, sir. Jason waved back, his throat too tight to answer. That night, he couldn't sleep. Her face, those eyes, kept flashing in his mind. He found himself dialing numbers, pulling favors, and calling hospitals until sunrise. The next morning he was back at the shelter, but Leela wasn't there. She left early, the matron explained, alarmed. Said she had to go see her mom. We tried to stop her, but she ran off. Jason's heart sank. Which hospital? She didn't say. He drove through the city for hours, asking, calling, searching, until finally a nurse at a public hospital recognized her description. Room 214. Pediatric oncology floor. She's been visiting every day. Jason's stomach turned cold. He ran to the corridors, ignoring the whispers and stares. When he reached the doorway, he stopped dead. Inside the dim hospital room, Leela sat beside a pale woman, her mother. Tubes ran from her arms. Oxygen hissed softly. The woman's eyes fluttered open just as Jason stepped inside. Leela's face lit up. See, Mommy. He came back. This is the man who gave me bread. The woman smiled weakly. You did that? Jason nodded, his voice low. I did what anyone should have. But the woman shook her head faintly. No, not everyone would. He moved closer. The doctors, what did they say? Leela looked down. They said Mommy needs surgery, but it's too expensive. Jason clenched his fists. How much? The nurse hesitated. It's a lot. Over 50,000. Jason didn't blink. She'll have it. I'll take care of everything. The nurse's eyes widened. Sir, are you serious? He took out his wallet, handed her a card. Call your director. Tell him, Jason Statham said, to book the best surgeon you've got today. For days, Jason stayed close, paying for treatment, visiting daily, bringing food and little gifts for Leela. He even arranged for her to attend a local school once her mother stabilized. And when the surgery finally ended successfully, the doctor smiled. She'll recover. Slowly, but she will. Leela cried so hard she could barely breathe. Mommy's gonna live? Jason knelt beside her and nodded. Yeah, kid, she's gonna live. She threw her arms around him, sobbing into his shoulder. You saved her. He hugged her back tightly. No, sweetheart, you did, with that song in your heart that kept her fighting. Weeks later, the hospital invited him to a small event. They didn't want to publicize it. He'd refused all cameras, but they wanted to thank him privately. Leela stood on a little stage, clutching a microphone. Jason sat in the front row beside her mother, now smiling and healthy again. This song, Leela began shyly, is for the man who gave me bread when I was hungry and gave my mommy a new life. Jason blinked, stunned. Then she sang, a soft, trembling voice filling the small hall with warmth that no spotlight could ever match. Musical note. When hearts are kind, the world can heal. A single crumb becomes a meal. When hope was gone, you gave me more, a door to love, an open door. Musical note. Jason lowered his head, tears sliding silently down his cheeks. When she finished, the room erupted in gentle applause. But Jason stood, walked up to her, and whispered, You don't owe me a song, Leela. You owe me a smile, and you've already given me that. She grinned, missing a front tooth. Then I'll give you another. And she did. The brightest smile he'd ever seen. Months passed. Jason continued to support the shelter and hospital quietly, ensuring no child would ever have to beg for food again. He never spoke publicly about that night. There were no headlines, no cameras, just a man who'd once been hungry and a little girl who reminded him why kindness still mattered. Sometimes one piece of bread can feed two souls, the one who receives it and the one who gives. The end.